So this is going to be another video focusing on poverty and inequality from the website Share the World's Resources. Blake will probably jump off at some point during the video because he doesn't sit still for long. So if there's a sudden noise or interruption from him, I do apologise in advance. But he's quite happy and he's purring. So he might stay for a while, I'm not too sure, until he gets annoyed with me. But yeah, I'm going to give it a go. So yeah, poverty and inequality. I don't know how up to date these facts are. So a few of them might be statistically different since it was written, but I don't know what the updates are, but it should be fairly up to date. Okay, so here we go. The first section is poverty. Almost half of the world lives on less than $2 a day, and for every 6 people who have enough food to eat, around one man, woman or child is starved of adequate nutrition. The total of those living in basic poverty also rose over most of the period between 1981 to 2004, especially in Africa, and where a number of poor people almost doubled. Of those at the bottom of the development ladder, 25,000 people continue to die every day from hunger in a world with a huge surplus of food. As widely quoted during the Make Poverty History campaign, on average of 50,000 people die from poverty each day, or 18 million people each year. The persistence of chronic poverty, defined as those people who remain in extreme destitution for much or all of their lives and normally pass on the same poverty to their children, is an indication of the ingrained inequality that is left untouched by the international development agenda. These families at the very bottom of the development ladder, who are often driven into destitution by ill health and a lack of access to medical services, will make up the majority of the 900 million people who will still be in absolute poverty in 2015, even if the Millennium Development Goals are met. According to the Chronic Poverty Report of 2004 to 2005, 300 to 420 million of the 1.2 billion then living in extreme poverty, as defined by the World Bank, were chronically poor. According to the World Development Indicators 2007, 969 million people live on less than $1 a day. Figures relevant to 2004. 2,548 million people live on less than $2 a day, a figure that represents 47.5% of the world population. Never before has the goal of abolishing poverty been within our reach. There are no longer any insurmountable insurmountable technical, resource or logistical obstacles to achieving it. Yet, more than 800 million people suffer from hunger and malnutrition. 1.1 billion people do not have access to clean drinking water, and every hour, 1,200 children die from preventable diseases. And that is from the United Nations Development Programme of 2006. According to UNICEF's report in 2005 on State of the World's Children, of the 2.2 billion children in the world, 1.1 billion live in poverty, almost every second child. Of the 1.9 billion children from the developing world, 640 million lacked adequate shelter, which is 1 in 3. 400 million, which is 1 in 5, lacked access to safe water, and 1 in 7, which is 270 million, had no access to health services. Almost 3 billion people, which is half the world. That is about out of date because it would be 3.5 now, but anyway. 3 billion people live in poverty so extreme they can barely survive. See Christine Aid's Life on the Margins website. Okay, the next section is about hunger. The Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, FAO, estimates that in 2001 to 2003, there were still 854 million undernourished people worldwide, 820 million in the developing countries and 25 million in the transition countries, and 9 million in the industrialised countries. Since 1990 to 1992, the undernourished population in the developing countries has declined by only 3 million people, from 823 to 820 million. The most recent trends are a cause for concern. A decline of 26 million between 1990 to 1992 and 95 to 97 was followed by an increase of 23 million, up to 2001 to 2003. In order to attain the World Food Summit (WFS) target, which is to halve by 2015 the number of undernourished people in the world from the 1990 level, the number of undernourished people must be reduced by 31 million a year between 01 and 03 and 2015. Across Africa, the number of undernourished people has risen during the period since 1990. In sub-Saharan Africa, this represents the continuation of a trend that has been apparent over at least the last 3 decades. Can't really see his face. 1 in 7 people go to bed hungry every day. If the current trend continues, there will still be around 580 million people going hungry in 2015, which is when the Millennium Developmental Goal agreed by 189 heads of state in 2000 to halve worldwide hunger by 2015 should be achieved. The country with the lowest global hunger index rating in 2007, based upon the proportion of undernourished as a percentage of the population, the prevalence of underweight children under the age of 5, and the under 5 mortality rate, is Burundi, followed by the Dominican Republic. The Dominican Republic, Congo. No. I don't know how to pronounce that. Then Eritrea. Cuba had the best rating out of the 97 developing countries and 21 transitional countries measured. Okay, this section is inequality basics. The most commonly considered are inequalities within each country, often measured in terms of the differences between the average income of 10% of the richest and the 10% of the poorest in the country. Inequality between countries, or international inequality, is measured in terms of the differences between indicators of average standards of life. Finally, global inequality considers the overall population of the world as a whole, normally measured in the same way as inequality within a country, by comparing the top and bottom 10% of the effective and result of the first two. The poorest 40% of the world population, the 2.5 billion people who live on less than $2 a day, account for 5% of global income, while the richest 10% account for 54%. The 3 richest people in the world control more wealth than all 600 million people living in the world's poorest countries. See End Poverty 2015 website. Okay, the next section is inequality between countries. The richest 50 million people in Europe and North America have the same income as 2.7 billion poor people, according to a World Bank study in 2002. The extent of international inequality, measured in terms of both wealth and income distribution, has been progressively revealed in several of the UN Human Development Records, HDR, released since 1990. In the 1998 study on consumption of human development, 20% of the population in the developed nations were reported to consume 86% of the world's goods. In 1999, the HDR revealed that the top fifth of the world's people in the richest countries benefit from 82% of the expanding export trade and 68% of foreign direct investment, while the bottom fifth are left with around 1% of both. The income gap between the fifth of the world's people living in the richest countries and the fifth in the poorest was 74 to 1 in 1997, up from 60 to 1 in 1990 and 30 to 1 in 1960. In the 19th century, inequality also grew rapidly in an era of global integration, with the income gap between the top and bottom countries increasing from 3 to 1 in 1820, 7 to 1 in 1870, and 11 to 1 in 1913. So, basically, the gap is increasing year by year, which is hardly surprising, really. In terms of income distribution between nations, the 20% of the world's people in the richest countries had 30 times the income of the poorest 20% in the 60s, compared with 74 times as much in 1997. Of the richest 25 million Americans, their total income is equal to almost 2 billion people. More than 50% of the world's assets are owned by the richest 2% of adults. It showed while the bottom half of the world population own only 1% of wealth. Altogether, the richest 10% of adults accounted for 85% of the world total. According to the Boston Consulting Group, total world wealth increased between 2001 and 2006, even through households holding less than $100,000 in financial assets saw their total values slightly decline. The new wealth, if revealed, has settled in the portfolios of millionaire households, accounting for 0.7% of the world's total households, who now hold over a third of the world's wealth. Nearly half of these households are situated in North America, with about a quarter from Europe. The next section is inequality in industrial nations. As potentially the richest and most unequal society in history, the income gap in the US is growing faster than any other developed nation, with severe poverty levels at their highest since 1972. To make the Forbes list of the 400 richest Americans in 2007 no longer required a multi-million-dollar fortune, but a minimum of $1.3 billion, up by $300 million within 1 year. Even amongst the rich, there is growing inequality, shown by the top 1% of households in the United States, who receive about half of the income of the top 10%, and the top 0.1% of households actually receiving nearly half of the share, going to the top 1%. The gap between the rich and the poor in the United Kingdom has reached its highest level for more than 40 years. After 10 years with Brown as Chancellor of the Exchequer, inequality in the UK is at the same level as under Thatcher and continuing to rise, while the poorest fifth of society pay the highest proportion of their income in taxes. As acknowledged by the International Monetary Fund, IMF, income inequality has increased in most regions and most countries worldwide in the last 2 decades. Prior to 1986, the number of American billionaires averaged around 13. In 1986, the number of billionaires doubled, then virtually quadrupled in 87, reaching a worldwide total of 793 by 06. A year later, in 07, the figure included a further 178 newcomers, to a total of 946 billionaires. Over half of the current billionaires come from just 3 countries: the US, Germany, and Russia. So there you go. It's not looking good, and it's only going to get worse by the sounds of it. I know it's not exactly a very relaxing subject, but I'm still whispering, and, I'd like you to take on board a little bit of what's going on, and try and go on Share the World's Resources, stwr.org, and just have a look around and see what you can find. But anyway, thank you for watching, guys. Much appreciated. Take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.